Welcome to the SANDCAST, people. We are here with a good friend of mine, Leon Abravanel, and we are brought to you by Firefly today, our daily recovery friends who take care of us in the health department. Leon, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, y'all. How we doing?
Man, we're doing good. I hear that, you're living up in Tahoe, so you somehow managed to get out of the snow. I'm surprised you can even leave right now with how much snow you're getting up there.
10 feet. Yeah, we just got 10 feet, so I'm tired of shoveling, and I had to get out. So I took my snowmobile over the mountain, and now I'm in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Wow, true mountain man.
All right, so for our listeners, I guess could you provide just a little bit of background on yourself, and then too, so you wrote a book called My Mental Playbook, which sports psychology is becoming a bigger and bigger thing in sports and athletics, as I think it should be. I think it's fascinating. I love listening to Michael Gervais and his show, and I think a lot of that advice and wisdom is super applicable just across the board, whether it's sports or business or whatever. So can you just kind of walk us through your background, what made you want to write the book, and maybe just kind of a little synopsis of what the book is about?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I love your guys' podcast. I've listened to almost every single one of them thus far, and it's really cool to see you guys kind of tackling the startup podcast world in a like non, traditional way in some capacity, where you guys are just very nice and comforting and casual. So good.
We try to be controversy free.
Yeah, you guys are doing great, man. It's awesome to be here. So thank you for having me. And then, again, my name is Leon Abravanel. I'm from South Lake Tahoe, and soccer was actually the game, was my vehicle, and the game I grew up playing. So I was fortunate enough to play at a pretty high level. I played at Division I, got a full ride scholarship to play at University of San Diego, and then played professionally for 4 years after that in Bolivia and Germany, and then across the United States, where I ended up playing actually for the LA Blues, which is a second division team, and ended my career there at 25, got an MBA in organizational leadership. Found my wife, moved up to Tahoe, and wrote this book. That's the end of the story. But,
very traditional life story right there.
And Leon's wife is my wife's cousin, so I don't know what that makes us, but that's how we met each other.
Cousin-in-law, maybe?
Cousin-in-law, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I guess whatever that is. Second cousin twice removed, something like that.
And my mental performance coach.
That would be an honor, Chuck.
Yes, sir.
But man, we're family now. But so the concept behind My Mental Playbook is that I think that all coaches say that sports are 99% mental, and some will say 75%, some will say 90%, but the majority of people say 99% mental, and the rest is whatever the rest is. And I think the interesting question that the co-author and myself had was, why is no one focusing on these things? Why, if it's 99% of the game, of the performance that you are about to go do, why is there no training around this? And if there is, where do we find it? And so we started digging into this in a deep way. And sports psychologists cost $250, $300 an hour if you're going to go to someone that's actually any good. And so what we did is we tried to condense all the information that you would learn in about 30 sports psychology sessions into one kind of customizable mental performance playbook that you fill out. It has tons of exercises that you can create your own routine, because that's a huge piece of the sports psychology world. It can't be cookie cutter. It has to be very specific to the particular athlete. So this is it's only 70 pages long. So also another big thing that we found was that mental performance or sports psychology books are 200, 300, 400 pages long. Like, as an athlete, training twice a day, not needing to nap, needing to, go to the training room and get their bodies right and minds right. There's no way in heck that you're going to be able to read that book, and by the end of it, are you really taking anything away from it? So, yeah, that's where the concept came from, and it's been out for about a year now. We sold a good amount of copies, so super happy about everything going on.
Yeah, I can certainly. I got kind of excited when you told me about it, because I can totally relate to being a young athlete, and now that I look back, and I've done a lot of my own sort of sports psychology training. But I started like actually doing it as a professional. But I look back on my career, like back to when I was a youth, and I was totally trying to develop certain mental skills and noticing different tendencies that change my play based on how I, mentally, what my mindset is going into certain sporting events. But I didn't know what I was doing at that age.
Right.
And I'm thinking like, damn, if my high school coach had this book or just had helped teach us some of those skills, I would be well beyond where I'm at now. And yeah, like you said earlier, it is, I don't know what the percentage is, but it is certainly my number one priority to make sure that my mind is right before I enter any competition or even practice. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
It's pretty interesting to hear, professional athletes say that. It's, that you think you could be at a much higher place if you would have learned this stuff at an earlier age. Just imagine what a normal athlete would be.
Right. You're right.
It's like, you had the gifts and the hard work and all the things, and probably has subconsciously learned those mental skills just along the way. But the book is not. It's not the destination, right? It's the journey as well. So,
right.
Yeah, it's cool to hear you say that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's this kind of stuff can help you in so many other ways as well. You can easily translate everything you learn from learning the mental aspects of sport and dealing with pressures and whatnot to any aspect of life, which is great. I'm still waiting for my copy, by the way, and I want to fill it out because I think it's great. It's one thing to do my mindset training in my head, but to actually put it on paper and somewhat get a log or journal of it is something that I've been meaning to do.
Don't hit that skip button, everybody. We're going to be right back here with SANDCAST. Just taking a brief second to give a big thanks to our sponsors. First and foremost, goes out to Wilson. Everyone should be stoked that the AVP season is coming up, which means that you need to order up your Wilson volleyballs or any other volleyball equipment you may need. So go to wilsonvolleyball.com to get that. Best news, you can get a discount, Wilson Sand. It's 20% off if you use our SANDCAST Wilson discode. So hop on over, get your preseason equipment, get ready for the season coming up at wilsonvolleyball.com and use Wilson Sand for a 20% off discount. This show is also brought to you by our guys at Firefly Recovery. These guys are awesome. Tri just went to Doha and was using Firefly Recovery in the hotel room. They've got them in the recovery tents on the FIVB. They're the best things possible because they're super mobile. You can bring them on planes if you're traveling around the world. I'm about to use them when I go to Vienna and Italy for snow volleyball. You can bring them to work if you want. They just stimulate the blood flow in the area that's sore or injured, and it helps it recover way faster and also just feels really good. So if you're sore, if you're aching, or if you just want to stay on top of your recovery, use Firefly Recovery. It's the best thing on the market right now, and it's really cheap too. So give them a try. Go to fireflyrecovery.com. And now for our Pacific Coast Wealth Management Olympic FIVB ranking update. Leading the charge for the men is Russians Vyacheslav Krasilnikov and Oleg Stoyanovsky. At number 2, welcome aboard two-time gold medalist winners of Sydney and Doha, Esteban and Marco Grimalt, who are cousins, not brothers. Leading the way for the Americans at the moment, though that's likely to change here soon, is Bourne and Trevor Crabb. And for the women, at number 1 is Brazilians Rebecca Cavalcanti, winner of the P1440 Top Guns event, and Ana Patricia Silva. At number 2,
From the U.S. is Emily Day and Betsy Flint, silver medalists in Sydney. Followed at number 5 is Brooke Sweat and Carrie Walsh-Jennings. And at number 6 is Kelly Clays and Sarah Sponso. More Americans at 11 and 13 with Brittany Howard and Kelly Reeves and Alex Kleiman and April Ross, respectively. So really solid showing in our Pacific Coast Wealth Management Olympic Rankings update from the American women here. And now we're going to let you get back to the show.
Yeah, well, I sent it to you. It must have got caught in this 10-foot storm. It's been in the mail.
He's snowmobiling it down to me.
I'll bring it down, by foot, man, because I have to.
All right, just wear your snowshoes.
And try kind of mention that there's a filling out aspect of the book, so it doesn't take on the traditional format of just kind of a narrative. You read the book and then you put it on the bookshelf. Walk us through how this book is a little bit different in that the reader has a little participation involved in this one.
Yeah, everything that we are doing is for that particular person. It's not for our own egos to say, hey, we know so much stuff, please read our 1,000-page book that is going to take you maybe a year to read. Instead, it's like it's nuggets of information, like the nuts and bolts of what you need to know about each particular topic. And then it's exercises that accompany that you get to fill out as the reader, so that you walk away with an exact formula or routine, as we call it, for yourself. And then you walk away and you say, okay, this is what I need to do mentally to do, to get to a higher level. And these are the steps, these are the exercises. So it's every single thing is for the reader. So
you mentioned a couple exercises that the readers can do. Can you name a couple in specific that maybe, because we have a lot of athletes that listen to our show, and specific beach volleyball athletes, so maybe a couple things that they'd be able to take away from it that they could do at home. Not trying to short you on sales for the book, but maybe just mention one or two just to tease them and make them buy it.
No, yeah, I think the biggest part of the book is the foundation, right? So the beginning part, so we're clear that the book is broken up into pre-performance, during performance, and post-performance. So pre-performance is something like goal setting or visualization, and a little bit of breath work. And then during the performance, it's how can you be resilient in the moment, right? The referee makes a bad call, you make a bad pass, you're not able to make the play that you were planning on making. How do you rebound from that quickly enough to be back into the game and playing at your best level? And then the post-performance is it's a list of reflection questions. So instead of saying, well, I think this is bad and this is the reason why this went this way, it's more like the 4 questions, and I don't mind sharing them with you guys, are what went well that was in my control? What went well that was out of my control? So, for example, the referee made an advantageous call for our team. What went well or what did not go well that was in my control, and what did not go well that was out of my control. And that way you could actually separate the way in which that you are processing the game. Because when we step off the court, or you step off of the soccer field, your emotions are running extremely high, and it's really hard to pinpoint specifically what you need to work on in the future, right? It's okay, well, what went poorly that was out of my control? The ref made a bad call, but what happened after that call? And maybe you got super frustrated and you started yelling at the referee, and the next set you were completely out of the game, which cost your team the championship match, right? So it's being able to pinpoint these things and kind of separate them from just being a very general way of looking at the game. But So that's how the book works. But foundationally, one of the biggest recommendations that we have is to meditate on a consistent basis. It's something that an athlete who is serious about taking their mental game to the next level on a very foundational level, a minimum of 5 minutes a day. And the reason why it teaches so many deeper lessons of discipline, but you got to think of your brain exactly as a muscle, and if you work it and you train it and you discipline it, there's unlimited benefits that come with that. But if you don't, then you're leaving, your brain up to chance, and we call it flabby brain, right? It's like it's got a little extra fat on it, and that's not elite performance. That's just mediocre typically. So
yeah,
that's one big thing. Another big thing is it's not an exercise in particular, but it's something called a growth mindset. And growth mindset is, if there's one thing that your athletes from this podcast could walk away with, it's growth mindset. It's a term that was coined by a doctor from Stanford who is basically researched, peak performance and etc. But growth mindset's the simple idea that there's nothing that's fixed. The moment that you become fixed in your mind is the moment that you cannot grow, right? So I'm only this fast. I can only jump this high. I'm only this competitive. I'm only this mentally tough. I'm only this smart, right? It doesn't give you any ability to learn and grow. Whereas an elite, super high level athlete, or just human being in general, is constantly learning, right? And constantly asking the questions and being open to that. So that growth mindset, that's, like I said, if there's one thing people could take away, I really think growth mindset is it.
Yeah, it's funny. We actually, that book comes up all the time. And when we go to, I think we've talked about it on the podcast probably before.
Carol Dweck is a regular name that's mentioned.
Yep.
Yeah. But when I go down to national team practices once a week, it's with the top few national teams. and a bunch of the top coaches as well, including Tyler Hildebrand, who's the head coach of the national team. But almost every other day, they're bringing up that book and certain quotes from it. So that absolutely translates to the highest level of our sport for sure. And actually, the first time I ever heard of it was just having a casual conversation with Phil Dahlhauser, who everybody knows. And he thought that was one of the best sports psychology books that he had ever read. And and then after that, I started hearing about it from everybody. And for some reason, I've read a lot of books, but I haven't picked that one up because I feel like everyone's just told me the sports psychology that's within that. But I need to pick it up, and I promise I will, people.
Yeah, it's so even that book in itself is lengthy, right? It's 250 pages, and it's semi-dense. So we basically took we scraped out of its knowledge and the nuts and bolts of that, and that's kind of the beginning of our book to kind of set the stage. So growth mindset, you're talking really about just a way of life. It's like, how can I make mac and cheese better? Okay, you know what I mean? It's like, how can I drive in traffic better?
The mac and cheese is a crucial skill. We all need a growth mindset.
Right? I mean, you can't make good enough mac and cheese. It just constantly gets better. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
You mentioned, I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned meditation, and I feel like that's been just meditation, breath work, mindfulness, I feel like have become almost like vogue terms, not just in sports, but in society in general. Why do you think that meditation is so important these days? Whereas before, maybe I think as soon as 10, maybe 5 years ago, if you said meditation, like most athletes would probably laugh at it and think it was probably some like Buddhist monk, sitting cross-legged somewhere in the Himalayas.
Sure. Right. Yeah, that's a great question, because meditation is also, you could argue that you're meditating right now if we're truly in the moment and we're like enjoying what we're doing, and we're focused, and we're talking in a way that we are both reciprocating this really nice relationship. So meditation does not necessarily mean you have to sit down with your legs crossed, you know, shave your head and move to Nepal. Like, that's not it. You can, but that does not mean that you have to. And so, yeah, I think that it's a critical skill, because the act of sitting down and trying to clear your mind is nearly impossible. So just at the very essence of it, it's like, okay, well, you want me to think about nothing? Like, how do I do that? I don't even know how. And what happens is that if you're brave and courageous, and you take the time, and like I said, you just sit down for 5 minutes a day. It's not 20, it's not 50. It can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But 5 minutes a day, and if you really try over time, and you make it into what they call practice, a meditation practice, you will find that you will start clearing your mind more often. And what does that mean? That means that your mind is becoming more disciplined. And when your mind is more disciplined, right, the stronger it is, right, in those tough situations, like the situations where you do get injured, like Tri just got injured, or even on like a momentary basis where something goes wrong in your life and you have to react, and instead of reacting in a negative way that could possibly hurt you further, it helps you like realign yourself and get back to that positive growth mindset that you want to have. So meditation is just something that, like, it can be at all times, but the actual act of meditating is where you're sitting down and just trying to clear your mind and discipline it. So yeah, it's becoming something that's super popular, but it should. It's not fake. It's not one of those fads. It's like, you know, it's real, and it's something that anyone in the world can do, and that's a really cool thing about it as well. So.
And then, so one kind of a two-part question. One's for you, and then kind of a follow-up to Try. When you were playing soccer professionally, was meditation something that you practiced as an athlete, or did you kind of start to discover this stuff after your time as an athlete was finished? And then for Try, I know that, you know, when you were sidelined with the autoimmune disease, that you were doing like 45 minutes a day meditating, which is crazy. And like, have you noticed any benefits from that in your game or elsewhere?
Oh yeah, big time. I was gonna say, I think, I mean, you hit it right on the head when you say, like, we could be meditating right now. Like, the meditation practice that I did while I was out helped me in my everyday life. So, and you kind of touched on it before, but, you know, if you practice daily, it's not, the benefits that you're going to get aren't necessarily going to come from that 5-minute session. That's what I've learned. And you're right, it was like, it took me to just be brave and say, screw it, to obviously get up to like the 50-minute meditation. I thought that was not going to happen, but at least I was brave enough to try it. And then I was like, wow, I feel amazing. And then I kept trying it and somehow did it for a month. But all the work that I've done, I've noticed, I don't remember from those specific sessions like how good I felt, or I didn't have some like vision or something. But I've noticed that throughout the entire day, I can tap into it really quickly and be aware of random trains of thought that are taking me away from the present moment. And I've gotten good at realizing that I don't need these train of thoughts, like they're not helpful. But normally we kind of trick ourselves into thinking that they are. So, for example, being a podcast host, if you're not in the present moment listening to your guest, you can't really carry that conversation on correctly. And I'm the most ADD person that I've ever met before all this. And I can for sure say that even right now as we're speaking, I'm good at recognizing when my train of thought's leaving, and then I can come back. I can bring it back and just forget about wherever my brain wanted to go and be right back in this conversation. And if I wasn't able to do that, if I didn't do all this meditation and mental work, it would be painful for you guests. Let's just say that.
Yeah, and then you take that, to the volleyball court, right?
Right,
and it's
exactly.
Like, what's happening in that particular moment? Okay, you got thousands of fans, and you got crazy stuff going on that is either in or out of your control, and regardless, there's going to be reaction after every single play. And volleyball is a sport in which that you need to recover immediately, like mentally,
right.
because you don't get time to just kind of lollygag and wander off. Like, you're in the next play,
mm-hmm.
and if you're not in that next play, you're going to lose the point again.
Right, exactly.
And again and again and again until you've actually lost the game or the match, and then you're wondering what happened, and then you're blaming somebody else, and then and then that whole cycle kind of happens. Now,
exactly.
It doesn't have to happen that way, but of course that's an extreme version of then how a lack of focus and discipline can lead to, potentially a slump.
Right.
It's like you miss a couple of easier shots, and you're not disciplined enough to get back to, and then you keep replaying that same story over and over and over again. If you're not disciplined, that could lead you to a bad season. And it sounds crazy, but the truth. And it's even bigger on the youth level when you're talking about a young mind who's developing and trying to become the best it possibly can. There's so many hormones that are going through that person's body that you're battling, on a galactic level at that point. It's just like
every second your brain's just gone.
It's nearly impossible to focus. So those young bucks that are listening out there, I mean, it's like if you could get this into your daily routine, man, I mean, and it grabs hold, like, oof, you're gonna be on a whole different level than anybody else. But to your question, Trav, I started meditating when I was in college, on a very minimal level, because I was having trouble with the demands of college and the academic demands in relation to my desire to become a professional athlete. And so, I talked to a sports psychologist who was free at the time because the school provided it, and he suggested I started to meditate, and that's kind of what kicked off my practice. But it wasn't until I was a quote-unquote professional athlete that I was able to really dive into the practice, because I had more time on my hands, to be quite honest. I woke up and I was able to put in 20 minutes of mental training and meditation a day, it kind of kick-started the kind of journey of how to not only do it myself and do it on a daily basis, but also hopefully inspire others to do it as well.
What benefits did you see from meditating, whether maybe specifically in your game, or I know that just I'm a big fan of the Calm app, and
right.
I just see it more. I mean, some on the volleyball court, but I've always had a relatively calm demeanor, but more so off of it when I have 30 different things I have to write in a day, and my brain just starts trying to do all of them at once. That's when I kind of see the benefits of it, when I'm just okay, just take a breath, and then let's just separate these things one at a time. So where did you see it kind of apply in your life?
Besides at the Christmas cornhole tournaments where we ran the table.
Well, it's funny. I was just going to say that, Tri, because honestly, I have a very intense disposition, to my detriment for sure. And
I think we both got a little too intense for Christmas.
It was just and in that intensity, you could for one lose friends or family members.
Classic cornhole.
Just try and me talk.
Our father-in-laws, easily could have kicked us to the curb.
Yeah. So, but it just kind of dials you in. I mean, that's what I think that the practice part of it, because when you talk about a meditation practice, you are practicing disciplining your mind, right? So when the game time, which is real life, so what you're doing is you're sitting down with the Calm app, or you're just, hanging out by yourself. Maybe you got some music on, maybe you're repeating a mantra, or maybe you're just thinking about nothing. You're practicing so that when you step off of that meditation pillow and walk into real life, that's the game. That's game time. And those, mistakes that you make during life are really, could have a cause and effect, right? Where, you're affecting people's lives, you're affecting your relationships, you're not writing a good article, that's going to be published for somebody to work for, in which that they could lose money, right? There's a lot of things, but on a youth level, it's like you're stepping out in the real world. You're figuring out your thought processes. Then you have a test, right? Now you have to go to practice. Then you got to go do homework. Then you got to eat. Then you got to sleep. You got to rinse and repeat that, right? If you don't have a strong mental disposition and discipline in that routine there, it's going to be really difficult for you to kind of attack all of those items that are going on in your life. So I just think from, at the very core level, it just dials you in, dials you in for life.
And then kind of moving on from the meditation aspect of it, I'm a big fan of, because this seems like you're combining sports psychology with like journaling a little bit. And I think as more science comes out on the power and usefulness of journaling, you kind of it's kind of a 2-in-1 type deal here. What does actually writing things down do that you think is so useful for athletes, rather than, because I feel like talking about it is one thing, but actually putting pen to paper, it sort of stamps it in your brain that much more.
Yeah, exactly. So what our goal is to make this book into something that you take to all of your training sessions and all of your games and on the road, and something that is kind of like, your go-to guide for, your mental game. And so when you write stuff down that's in your own words, it crystallizes your thought processes, because we all know that we have 5,000 thoughts and 5,000 goals and, and 5,000 things going on in our minds. But the moment that you can sit down with an exercise that is like designed specifically for you, and you can put your thoughts, those 5,000 thoughts, and focusing it into one or two different things, you've just cut out 4,998 things, right? So it just gives a lot of clarity to the process of becoming a better human being on a consistent basis.
And you mentioned, a couple times that beach volleyball is kind of a unique sport in that you don't have a lot of downtime to either recover from, a bad mistake. Say I hit a line shot long, or, you don't have a lot of time to like calm down after a huge play. So how would you advise beach volleyball players to kind of be mentally focused from play to play?
So there's two specific things. That's a good question, because, think about it. If you're like a golfer, right? Like a golfer has like 5 minutes between shots. Like that's the worst, right? It's like you hit a bad shot, you got like 5 minutes to think about it.
How about an NFL kicker?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Just the whole game, yeah. And then it's all on you.
Right, and then you have 7 days till you kick again, right?
You're basically a fan, and then they just bring you down to be like, hey, you, all the pressure's on you now.
Yeah, win us this game, little guy. Yeah. But yeah, so in the volleyball world, it's you have to be resilient quickly, right? You have to be able to respond quickly, which is a blessing, because if you think about it, you don't have 5 minutes to wait between the next shot or the next play, right? You have to respond, or it's like eat or be eaten in that situation. But some tricks to doing that is, and this comes kind of with the book as well, but it's like it's creating a thing called a mantra, which is a very, blasé kind of word these days, and it's something that people like are latching onto. But the word mantra is basically like you create like a dialogue in your mind it's something like, I'm faster, I'm better, I'm stronger, no worries, next one, next shot, next play, right? It's whatever you want to create, but that's a really good way to just, like, you make a mistake, you hit a bad pass, it goes out of bounds, something happens that's in your control, and you basically are able to say that mantra in the moment, and over time, if you train it, it triggers you to get back to the present moment.
Yep.
So mantra is definitely something. And another one is going back to that breath, that disciplined breath that you've practiced on the meditation pillow, for months before.
Right. I personally, like thinking about these mantras, I've had so many over the years. Like, it's almost like a different thing that works for me every match or every tournament or whatever,
Right.
But I didn't even think about them as mantras. I'm just like, these are certain things that I know that will cue my focus back to where I think it needs to be for this specific match or whatever. I remember when I first read The Inner Game of Tennis, which is, pretty popular sports psych book. The thing I always repeated to myself and I found success in was observe behavior without judgment. I'll just say that to myself, because then I could hit a ball out and then be like, observe behavior. So I just like replay it in my head and be like, okay, don't judge it. Okay,
right.
No, I'm over it. And I just say that all the time, and sometimes I still use that. I remember one time, and I've had so many, but another one that worked for me for a little while was when I was saying to myself, oh crap, now I'm losing it. Wait, I got it. It was composure. Dang it, what was the second? Concentration and confidence. I would just say that, and it would be a little mental checklist in between points to be like, am I composed? And if I was yelling at the ref, or if my heart was beating really fast because I was pissed at the other team, I'd be like, no, I'm not. So let's get. Yeah. So it'd be like a little checklist. It'd be like composure, concentration, and if I'm, thinking about something else, then I'm like, no, I'm not concentrated. And then the last one was confidence, and that would kind of just hone me back in on the game, where I'd be like, all right, I'm in kill mode again. I'm focused on what I'm trying to do with this ball right now. And I usually did that from the service line, and that really worked for me as well. But yeah, I never thought of it as a mantra. I just kind of was like, this works for me. I'm not going to tell anyone, even though now I'm telling everyone. But anything that works for you. And if you see it work once, then repeat it and keep repeating it and doing it until it stops working, or if you find something better. But I thought that was really cool. Another thing that I was thinking of when we were doing this was that the mindfulness that I've worked on has like evolved to where I used to be like, okay, I want to block everything out of my mind and just be right here. Block out the fans, block out the opponents, the refs, everything. But now I'm finding that I can have control with where my mind goes, and sometimes I'm going to use the fans to my advantage. The energy of the stadium, and knowing that my opponent, if the energy's on my side, I'm not going to ignore them. I'm going to use them. I'm going to pump them up and try to make them, get into my opponent's head. And if my opponents are in their own head, or they're screaming at me, but I can see kind of an insecurity in there, then I might bark back at them just because I know that it'll work in my advantage. Or if I'm being aware of where my partner's head is at, where the refs are at. Sometimes the refs are nervous and they're put in a really bad position. So you want to be nice to them or not, or whatever, You realize that they're making calls a certain way this particular day. So you can play to that. But if you're not able to control your focus and where you're going, where your head's going, then you're not able to do that. So a lot of skills kind of come out of it.
Yeah, you're talking really about this mastery, right? And I think that when you're talking about the mantra, you're talking about this. It's a concept, right? You're talking about this concept that's if it's standing alone, it's useless. It's something that you kind of just can say, and it might help you a little bit. But if you tie that into a disciplined meditation practice, and so that's months of time or years of time that you are disciplined in this, and you can now use that mantra while you meditate, right? And now you're training your mind to use the mantra as well. Then when you get into the game and you got thousands of fans, like tries explaining, and you use that mantra, now your brain's going to click into discipline mode, and you're also going to be able to kind of take a step back potentially and use those fans to help your team succeed. And so it's all tied into one, and so there's no, it is training. It's just like you can't be a strong athlete without a strong core. You can't jump without strong legs. You can't be an athlete without training, and the mind is no different, right? The mind is something that is trained and disciplined over time. So when Try's explaining, getting the fans incorporated into the game and working with them to help his team win, that's a byproduct of years and years of training and game management and understanding of himself in relation to his surroundings. Like, that's just something that takes a lot of time. And for people to somehow think that they're going to wake up one day and be a mental, master is complete opposite. But if you have a growth mindset and you sit around and you say, I'm going to constantly get better, I'm going to constantly train my mind so I'm more disciplined, I'm going to constantly just learn and be in the process of learning, then it's not a chore. It's actually a joy. And when you quote unquote have to sit down on that meditation, pillow, it's not I have to, it's I want to. Mm-hmm. I want to train my mind, because I know deep down inside, not only did my favorite volleyball player Bourne tell me, but I'm gonna give this a shot, and when I do, I will see the benefits, but it's going to take some time. And I am grateful for the opportunity to be able to do this, because I'm just going to constantly get better, and it's going to be awesome.
So we have got meditation, and then we have obviously filling out my mental playbook. Is there anything else that athletes can do at home? Like you mentioned, sports psychologists can go for $250, $300 an hour. So is there anything that, say, beach volleyball players who are not making billions of dollars,
Travis is asking for himself.
So what can we do? Yeah, I may be asking for myself. What can we do at home, either, maybe just on a practice day or just an off day, before match, after match? Is there any exercises that you have in mind that, athletes might be able to go through, without paying that premium fine of a Michael Gervais?
Yeah, the pre, during, or post, or just on a daily basis at home, or all of it.
Is there anything specific, or is meditation kind of an all-encompassing exercise?
No. I think that another big thing that we've found, and I think every sports psychologist would say the same, is goal setting. Right, when you have set goals, and there's process goals, and then there's outcome goals, and those are explained in the book, but they're kind of self-explanatory. But if you could set goals for your training sessions on a daily basis, it's going to help you a lot, and you stick to that goal. You have to be a man of your word, right? So it's like, hey, I want to hit 100 today. And I want to do it in this particular way, right? That's your goal for that particular training session, and you have that at the forefront of your mind, then that will, that's something that is going to help you significantly, and you could do that at home. So, going full circle, it's like, okay, so I just got done with my last game. It went, we do our reflection questions, you find, the specific things that you think that you need to work on for the upcoming week in training. Then you set goals within those specific items of whatever they may be that you think you need to work on, and then you go train them. And then the next week you rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat until you're just, the athlete that you want to be, and then you just continue that process. So I think goal setting is another huge one that is very easily done at home.
Yeah, I love that. I know that Gina Urango, we had her. I think she was our maybe like top five guest that we had on SANDCAST. She goes into every practice with 3 goals that she wants to accomplish that practice, or 3 specific things she wants to work on. So it's definitely something that's being popularized within the beach volleyball world. I know that we've kept you for a while, so before we have to kind of run here, wanted to give some credit to your co-author, Zach Eder. If you want to give a little background on him and how you guys kind of met up, and how you teamed up to make this book, we'd love that.
Zach is an amazing young man. He's getting his master's degree in sports psychology counselor, and he's he's young, but he's just on point. And so what happened is I run a company called Tahoe Training Camps, where we do high elevation training camps in Lake Tahoe, and he put his application on a job post that I put together for a sports psychologist, because we do a lot of sports psychology in my camps. And him and I got to talking, and it was incredible. I mean, we just clicked, and we started chatting about this concept that just turned into flying him out to Lake Tahoe, because he lives in Massachusetts. Flew him out. We worked for about a week together to create the structure of this thing, and he is he's the guy who's putting all of the expertise into everything that we do. Like, he's putting the title behind everything, and so it's a 99% him, 1% me kind of situation, because he's so passionate about it, and he knows what he's doing in a very strong way. So not enough good things to say about him. He's just an amazing human being for sure.
I love it. And where can our guests follow you guys if they want to check out the high performance training camp or the Tahoe training camps, which is your guys' camps are putting on up there?
Yeah, that's Tahoe training camps. We're on the Insta, and we're on the Facebook thing, and then we're obviously our website is tahoetrainingcamps.com. But for the book in particular, it's just mymentalplaybook.com, and we just want to hear it. We want to hear from you guys. So buy it or don't buy it, but we want to hear what you think for sure.
I love it. And they can buy it from the website, or I know it's on Amazon as well.
It's on Amazon. You can buy it directly from the website. Our email is right there. We can contact us directly. And then if there are any coaches out there that buy over 15 books for their team or organization, we do a 1-hour free consultation with Zach. So that's just kind of a little added bonus for everybody. So, if a coach says, hey, I want to bring this into my volleyball club, and Zach would call him in, and they'd have like a one-on-one conversation for an hour about, the coach's goals and how to implement the book into, his team or players or whatever. So.
Awesome. We have one question that we ask every guest. If you had to give one piece of advice to an up-and-coming beach volleyball player, what would that piece of advice be?
Follow Bourne on Instagram.
Love it.
Thank you. I love
That's
it.
the first one. We've had a couple repeat pieces of advice. I know. Finally, someone gets it.
Is that right?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Thing with that the growth mindset will change your life in the most positive of directions, and those that have a growth mindset are going to be happier and more fulfilled with their sports, and also get to a higher level. So growth mindset.
Awesome. Growth mindset, meditate a little bit, follow Try on Instagram, and you will have a mental playbook.
Wait, yeah, and buy the book.
And buy the book.
What your new sponsor of SANDCAST, right? We're a new sponsor, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Apparently. We're always looking for sponsors.
I know. I should though. You guys are awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Leon,
thanks for coming on.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. And everyone, take your game to the next level with My Mental Playbook. You like that?
Yeah, that was great. So you're good. If you're not a good opener, you're a good closer. Charlie.
That's what I'm talking about. That's all I care about.
We've come full circle.
Yes. All right, we'll end on that. Drive safe, Leon. Say hi to the family, and we will see you soon.
All right, bud. We'll see you guys. Thank you so much.
Shoots.
Yeah, later.